Cory.
Christopher.
I'm genuinely pumped to have you on the podcast. One, because it just feels so good to not be sitting across from Todd. No, I'm kidding.
Todd's just catching strays immediately.
He's right there. He's gonna jack us up with photos now. But no, seriously, like we've talked about having you on the podcast for a while, and I know that today we're gonna dive into nutrition. And so I definitely want to have you back on because genuinely, and like today's meeting is another example of it, is like when you give input, like half the time I sit back and just have a huge smile on my face because it's good to have your input and you articulate things incredibly well. And there's just been different times where we're like, dude, write that down, or we need to film a podcast on that. And we're not going into this now, but I'm just going to say like the one I'm excited. So I'm putting this out there for everyone to hear that we need to do this one is your views on challenge and like the gym and how it changes your perception of challenge. And that's it. We're just going to tease people with that. But today, we're talking about nutrition. And for those that don't know, I'm probably going to butcher this first statistic, but you lost like 50 pounds?
Yes, right around that. Yeah, right around there.
Right around 50?
Yeah,
okay.
Yep.
More or less?
A little bit less.
Okay.
Just a little bit less.
Dang, I've been lying to everybody.
And you know what? That's okay. Sometimes people need a little lie to get them motivated. I get it.
But you lost a crap ton of weight. So 40 some pounds is safe to say. Okay,
yeah.
40 some pounds. And so you bring a different perspective. Todd and I have not lost 40 pounds. But then you also bring the perspective as someone who came in as a client, who had their struggles, had their wins in that realm, and that realm being just like kind of the strength and conditioning side of things. And then you went through the nutrition program, and you had your struggles and your wins in that as well.
So much struggle.
And what's been really cool is now to have you on as a coach. And so we've never had anyone on. We've never had anyone on but me and Todd. But this will be the first time. If you see the camera shaking, it's because Todd's back there trying to sabotage this.
Working as hard as he can.
Like
said all that shit.
in any way, shape, or form of anything we've put out from the gym, to put something out there with someone who has the perspective that you do. So I'm pumped. So what I want to do, I want to start. I'm going to say going back to the beginning, but the beginning could mean multiple things. It could mean when you joined the gym. It could mean when you joined the nutrition program. And I don't know if you have a preference of where you would want to start, but specifically, whatever makes sense for you to kind of set the stage for things. Like it could be some of the mental stuff, it could be some of the physical stuff, but just kind of where were you at so that we can talk about everything else.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for that incredibly flattering introduction. I feel like I'm about to let everybody down with my lack of articulation over the next hour or so.
Won't happen.
So starting off, I mean, yeah, let's take it back to when I first joined the gym and like why I first joined the gym. So I had moved over here from Ohio after like the worst job stint ever. I was in Ohio from like October 2020, so like peak COVID to like 21. And I made my way over here and didn't really have anything going on physically, didn't really have anything going on at all. And I was like bored and kind of sad and like needed to find something to do. And I remember I was Googling and I found the gym. And I was like, oh, this seems like a cool concept. The Google reviews are good. And specifically when it comes to Google reviews, I'm always looking for like over 4 stars with like a reasonable number of reviews. Like I don't want to see like 1,000, right? Like I want to see like a good number because that means you're not like pushing people to get them. They're actually giving their own real experience. So I found the gym. The reviews were great. I was like, it's 10 minutes from where I'm cooped up as living wise. And I go in and I do the concierge session and I get my 10 free days at the time. And I was like, this is it. This is solid. And then I signed up for 5 days a week and I said, all right, this is it. Solving all my problems. Week 1 goes by. Okay, cool. Week 2 goes by. Cool. And then that's it.
What is it? What happened?
For a fat chunk of time, I signed up and I just wasn't showing up, and it's really funny. You know, I have a bit of an MO of like biting big projects, ideas, and things to do, and then kind of going back. I know, right? And then kind of taking a step back, and then going, "Oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming," and stopping cold turkey. And so I did that with the gym at first, and it's like a good 3 month, maybe almost like 4 or 5 months, where I was just spending money on the gym, and I was doing what everybody talks about New Year's resolutioners doing with the gym. And I didn't show up for a good amount of time and felt terrible about it. Every single time I would see the charge in my bank account, I was like, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing?" And I remember I was going through like some mental health stuff at that time, just like high depression levels, and like just not feeling great about myself. And finally, I started therapy. So I got like a talk therapist, and she's wonderful. Still have the same one today. She's great. And one day we were sitting in a session, and I was like, "Hey, so I've got this gym membership that I'm paying X amount for, and I am not showing up."
I'll say it, a lot.
It was not cheap. And I am not showing up. And then she was like, And therapists are supposed to be like very impartial. They're not supposed to really show a lot of emotion. She goes, "Okay, and let's unpack that." So we started like talking through, and it came back to a lot of like, for me, why weren't you showing up? Well, I feel like I'm a bad client. I'm paying all this money. I'm not showing up. And then they probably think I'm a terrible client, so they don't want me to come. And, it was all of this stuff. And eventually she was like, "Why don't you just like ask them or like have a conversation?" And so I can't remember if I sent you a text message or did I come and talk to you in the gym one day?
Both. So I get a text from you, and you were like I think it was like kind of an apologetic text, and you were like, "But can we make some time to talk?" And I was like, "Yeah, dude." And I don't remember how it worked out, but I think we sat in here, and then the conversation carried over to like we were chilling at the front desk talking. Yep. Yeah, you can say whatever you want on that, but yes.
It was, and it was like a very good conversation, at least for me, because a couple of things happened. Number one, it made me like right size my expectations with myself immediately, which I think is something that I can constantly struggle with, and a lot of people can constantly struggle with. We get hit really, just furiously with these messages of like, you need to get out there, and you need to do it all, and you need to do it all right now, and it's like, okay, or you're like a weak person, or like you're weak-minded or whatever. And I like really bought into that for like a very long time. And so I was like trying to do it all, and way before I had the capacity to do so. And so I remember, one of the big things was like, let's just scale it back to 3 days a week, and like, let's start there and do something that you can actually sustain and keep going for like a long period of time. This is what your base level is, and you can grow from there, but like, this is something that you can actually commit to and do well. And then just in general, I think your willingness to have that conversation, to me, I think it was a like, oh, these people actually like me enough, and I'm not just like a number, and I'm not a bad person. Like, they don't think I'm a bad person. I just didn't want to be hated. And so so after that was like a good charge for me. Yep. And even after that, though, it took me a little bit to get that 3 days consistently. It would be like, okay, a week. And then, okay, maybe the next week I got like 2 days, and then maybe the next week I wouldn't go at all, and then I'd be back to 3, and it just kind of kept going. But eventually, I was continuously checking in with myself and saying, okay, like, are we doing the things that we should be doing? If so, why not? Let's fix it. And then eventually, I got that 3 days, and then I bumped that up to 4 days, and then I like bumped that up to 5 days. And then it was like looking at the lifestyle stuff outside. So what's my steps looking like?
That happened first. I think you're recalling
was
that.
It?
Yeah. So when you came in and talked to me, you were like, basically, here's what I'm going to do. And I loved it. And you were like, I am solely focused on nailing my step goal, and I want to show myself I can do that. You're like, and then you told me, you were like, and then I want to get in here 3 times a week. And I remember asking you, are you certain? Like, are you absolutely certain you can do 3 times a week? And you were like, yeah, but kind of like a why. And it's like the same spiel we've had with everyone is like, if you feel like you should do 3 times a week because you couldn't do 5 times a week, but there's still a should on 3, like don't do 3, let's do 1 or 2, right? But you were like, no, I can knock 3 out of the park. Boom, then that's where we start.
Yeah.
And when we knocked out of the park, we go up. But you had, when you came in and talked to me, I think based on your conversation with your therapist, or maybe not, maybe it was just something that you did, you had already made, because that was one of your things. You came in, you were like, it's not all bad, and I'm like, dude, I don't mean this in like a dickhead way, but like, I mean, I don't care. I care.
Yes.
But like, there's no all bad to me. It just is. You know, it's whatever it is right now. And the most frustrating thing of being in this world is that sometimes I think people catastrophize things in their head, like you were, and they keep themselves from making any progress because they think that we are staying up at night just being like, this idiot. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, couldn't be further from the truth. Like, if anything, I'm just like, man, I wish that like whoever like the individual is in circumstances, like when we do discuss like what is going on with so-and-so, it's like, I wish that anyone could just see that like better is better. Like,
Yes.
And like, no matter how much you think you're fucking up right now, like the slightest step, and I don't want that to sound like everyone needs coddled and like, let's just be like super soft. Cause there are times for tough conversations, but like, yeah, just, we don't care in a way that we're like, screw that person. Like, it's just like, we don't need to overcomplicate it. So.
Well, and in general, like the path out of the rut is typically a lot easier than you think it is. And I think when you're in the rut or you're in the hole, it seems so deep.
Yep.
It seems like you are just trapped at the bottom of this pit, and it's going to take you T minus 60 days to climb out of it, when it really might just take you like one really strong action and one decision. Really, a lot of it is just a decision, right? To say that I'm not going to get caught in this space forever, and then you start figuring out, you know, your ways out of it, and especially, you know, going and getting the support so that you can look at that from like an objective angle, as opposed to like the way that your feelings are making you perceive it, is huge. And I think that's kind of where that kickstart was, right? First, you know, I have a therapist to say, even go have this conversation. And then it was having the conversation and saying, okay, here are the things that we're going to do. And we're going to start there. And getting that kickstart of support for a lot of people is like what they need to kind of get them on the right direction or right size the ship when it's sort of going off course for a little bit. And yes, thank you. I kind of like, sometimes the time scale of that whole beginning pieces, it just kind of gets all over the place. But I finally was able to, over a period of time, work my consistency and my frequency up to the point where I was even doing like a little bit of extra work, just because I wanted to pass the row tests for the strength standards, which I still haven't done yet, but we'll get to that later. And so then the nutrition program came.
Yeah.
The nutrition program was really interesting. So I think just a background in terms of,
I'm going to say one thing because you're wrong on that too. Nutrition came before all the extra rowing.
Dang it.
And I only know that for sure because of and I'm pointing like he's still out there, but he's around, because of the interview that you did with Todd.
Oh.
So, yeah. So you had gotten consistent in the gym.
Yeah.
You had gotten your steps in, and then nutrition came. So,
thank you very much.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that.
It doesn't matter, but I think it does matter as we go through and talk about, because I think of what, how things unlocked.
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't like everything was perfect with training first. Like one thing led to the next thing, but when it was done successfully, the next thing didn't happen until the current thing was almost easy. It was just like your routine at that point. So anyways.
Well, no, and I think another piece, you know, to kind of talk about that is just like the narratives that we tell ourselves that we have so ingrained in our mind, because like I look at this timeline and I'm like, it went like this, and this. And when you kind of like take that same notion and push it back out to a lot of the things in our life. I mean, talking just about ruts that you get ourselves in, you tell yourself a story of like, this is how I got to this place, when sometimes that story, it ain't even true. So, you know, when you are really, really like looking at it again, like having that objective, it doesn't have to be like completely objective because, you know, people like you, that's a subjective thing. But having people who are there willing to support and willing to really bring a little dose of reality to the conversation is so important in all areas. But so, yeah, I started the nutrition program, and if I remember correctly, like I also struggled with the beginning of the nutrition program because once again,
a little pattern here.
Starting things is not particularly my strong suit. Interesting. But a little bit of background on like my nutrition efforts in the past. I have tried a lot of different quote unquote diets and eating strategies. And you know, as a person who perused like bodybuilding.com in college and high school quite a bit, like I was very, very on board with like tracking macros and tracking calories, and I knew the ins and outs of a food scale. Like I knew how to work that thing. But like where I struggled was I could put in large amounts of effort for like short periods of time, and then it would always just fall completely and totally apart. To like the point where my eating would get worse than the starting point.
Yep.
And so the nutrition program, when we started it, was a real, it was different. And what was different about it was that I didn't expect this because we kind of talked about it beforehand. But whenever someone hears nutrition program, you think, okay, I'm going to either get a diet or I'm going to get a certain prescription of things that I am supposed to eat or amounts I'm supposed to eat in. But this was really focused on habits.
Yep.
And the formation and retention of habits. And I think that is a pretty big paradigm shift in terms of the way that people think about food, because there is a level of permanence versus like temporary efforts there, right? So much of what we do is, you know, get ripped in 30 days or, you know, 30 days to the rest of your life. And it, when you're thinking in that level of timeline, you see a start date and you see an end date.
Yep.
And then when the end date hits, what am I supposed to do after? I don't know. And with the nutrition program, sure, there was a start date and there's an end date. It was 12 weeks. But by specifically focusing on habits and things that you could do every single day, regardless of whether you were even like actively within the program or not, it made for a set of tools that you could use rather than a diet that you could follow. And so, but it took me a little while to start using those tools. And there was a check-in process. There's a check-in process that is utilized where you constantly report on, did you try to follow this habit today? And keyword is try, right? You know, and it could be so easy. And what I fell into the trap of is the do or do not. There is no try mentality of it. And so I immediately, whenever I would like feel like I was not doing something, I would catastrophize immediately, and then I just wouldn't answer the question. And then I would, because I didn't want to say I wasn't doing it, but I wasn't doing it. And so it took a while for me, and I can't remember if did you reach out to me and were like, hey, like, how's it going?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when, you know, the waterworks came out. It's going bad. But then again, we had to have a right size discussion of like, what does this look like? Like, what does this look like from a long-term sustainability standpoint? What can you do right now? And versus, you know, what do you want to be doing? Yeah. And so, you know, and once again, we take that and then we kind of run with that. It's really interesting. I feel like once I get the permission to like be not perfect at things is where things sort of take off. That the whole, you know, people always say that perfection is the enemy of like good, or, you know, perfect is the enemy of good. I feel like that can tend to be such a saboteur to so many people, even if they don't see it in themselves.
We say perfect equals failure.
Yeah, and I was failing hard until given the permission that like perfect is not what you're aiming for. Effort is what you're aiming for. Mindfulness is what you're aiming for. And so once I kind of got that like green, the green flag or the green check mark and thumbs up to kind of run with that, things sort of took off there. And yeah, sort of, just a little bit. And I was like very on track after that. I think the thing that really worked for me is, or at least part of the reason that it worked so well is I was following the habits. And then what would end up happening is like that habit would lead to like me jump starting some of the other things that I had done in the past. So like, again, I've always been like a big numbers person in terms of like my macros and stuff. And as soon as like the habit is, okay, try to get in protein with each meal. So then my mind was like
2 palms of protein.
2 palms of protein. Yep. 2 palms of protein per meal. Women, 1 palm of protein per meal. And then I would turn that into, okay, like how much protein is that? And then it just made me, it gave me like, okay, this is good enough. And then anything after that is like extra credit is the way that I looked at it in my mind. And that's not always the case for everybody, but like that worked for me in my brain. And so I did that. And with each new habit, came more and more adherence and more like building on top of, each habit built on top of each other.
Yep.
Until after a while, you just have this well-running machine of, with a foundation that is like relatively easy to follow, that you can just kind of run off of. And so then anything I wanted to go like above and beyond that, I could do that, but always knowing that I had this like backdrop of like good habits that I can fall back on. And it's really interesting, you know, coming into the point where we're running the nutrition course now, I've been going back through all of the old habits and seeing like, okay, it's such a good reminder for me because, you know, reminding yourself of the habits is a good practice because sometimes, you know, it's been what, a year, 1.5, 2.
It's been a while. I mean, that was like late October. No, maybe it was November of 22.
Yeah. So
right?
yeah. So almost like a 1.5 years now. And there were definitely some of the habits that I still was like following consistently over and over. And then there were certain things where I was like, ooh, that kind of fell back. And then you wonder, oh, well, why have I had, you know, maybe some struggles since then? You got to pull those habits back in. Yep. And so really just going back to this sense of building this foundation, and the nutrition program really set that up so that I could do whatever I wanted after and always have that place to come back to.
So let me jump in because we started off by saying 50 pounds, but it's 40 some pounds.
Yeah.
The program's 12 weeks long.
Yeah.
You didn't lose 40 some pounds, right? And I think what a lot of people do is they do, and it's not to pick on any diet, but they'll do something that has like a defined, you know, we talk about like, what are ones like Whole 90 or, you know, whatever, like this thing where it's like, I'm going to do this thing for 75 days, 30 days, whatever.
75 hard.
75 hard, which I like 75 hard.
Yeah.
But then what, right? Like what happens on day 76, 77? Like, and so you didn't lose 40 some pounds in 12 weeks.
No.
You lost like no weight in the beginning, right? And by the end, what was your loss at the end of the 12 weeks?
It was
if you recall, which we now know you recall is terrible. So.
Gosh, you see me, I'm trying.
I think it was around 15 pounds.
That's the number I was going to say. It was either between 15 or 20. It was somewhere right around that time, that period or that figure, somewhere around 15 or 20. But you're right. Like, you definitely don't want to come in with the idea that, oh, I'm going to lose all of this weight. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I kind of would rather somebody not set a specific weight goal. Yeah. Because I think putting that number in your mind will give you a pass-fail condition that you don't need to have. If you follow the habits, it's going to lead you to where you want to be eventually.
Yeah.
And sure, you can have a goal in the back of your mind. That's really cool. But like, you get the goal, you put the plan in place, so set the habits, and then you almost like want to forget about the goal until you eventually get there. Because like the value is in the habits and the practices that you learn getting to that goal. And being able to maintain those even after that goal has been reached. So yeah, I think it definitely wasn't 12 weeks, 40 pounds. It was like 15 pounds, and then I kept going. I think I hit my lowest weight around August time frame. So maybe another 6 months later.
Yeah.
And then ever since then, it's been like kind of eating more to. I've stayed around the same weight generally. I feel like I have more muscle than I did before.
For sure. But you guys can't really see Cory right now if you're watching this anywhere that you're seeing the video. The dude is yoked and ripped. So I'll say it.
Thank you. I do appreciate it. Actually, that kind of brings me to another thing. I know we're going like literally all over the place, but like yoked and rip. First of all, thank you so much. But I think that also just kind of talks to like the reasons why somebody might want to, start changing their nutrition. And I think there's all sorts of different reasons why. I think for me, a big thing has been trying to separate the way I eat and like this idea of like I want my body to look a certain way versus like I want my body to perform a certain way. We are super duper aesthetically focused. I can be very aesthetically focused.
I think everyone is, and some people just don't admit it.
Yes, I 100% agree. Like everybody wants to look good without clothes on.
Yeah.
Like that's, it's fundamental to the human experience. But I think that like when you make that the only goal of eating a certain way, I think you find yourself compromising your ability to like objectively critique how things are going with the way that you're eating, because you can wake up one day and think you look amazing, and you can wake up one day and think you look like crap, right? And you don't want to like constantly shift the way you eat because of that. You want to be a little bit, if you're more looking sort of holistically about the way you feel, the way you're performing in the gym, all of those things, you're going to have more places to pull from in terms of knowing like, oh, am I eating the things that I should be eating? Do I have the energy that I need? So on and so forth. And then, if you need to adjust based off of that or just motivate yourself to kind of stay on a path that you're on, look at it right in there, because it doesn't, it fluctuates, but it's a different set of data points than like just the way that you look. That's a little less controlled by your feelings, I think, as much. Yeah.
You know what I heard recently that I think you'll at least get a kick out of, but maybe appreciate, because you and I have talked about bodybuilding.
Oh, yeah.
And it was James Smith, which I don't know if you follow him, but if not, you should.
Is he the English guy?
Yeah.
He fights and stuff. I literally
jiu-jitsu, yeah.
I just followed him yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Super good follow.
Todd and I
yeah.
both have done his business course, like fantastic. Dude.
Yeah.
But he did a thing, and I forget how it got here, but he was like, basically, he's like, can we stop worshiping bodybuilders? We are praising someone for a day where they're at their worst.
Yes.
Like they're stepping on stage completely depleted and in a man, and I am totally butchering the way he said it, but I'm going to get like the takeaway of it. And they're showing up that way for just this moment, and then it's like, all right, now I can go eat again and drink again. He's like, versus athletes, right? And I've always, not always, but like I've spent the last number of years, and it comes back to that like aesthetics versus performance. And it's like a lot of people, some people want to look like a bodybuilder. I would say the majority of the population doesn't.
Right.
And this is not me. Like, I don't care. You can want to look like whatever you want to look like.
Yeah.
But there's such a difference of obsessing over these minor details that are crucial to bodybuilding. And like, if you attach your mental stability and your self-worth to that, right? And especially if you're not a paid professional like those guys and ladies are, like it's a pretty tricky world. And I'm saying this as my show was canceled, but
yeah.
I prepped all the way up to 3 days out from a bodybuilding show.
Yeah.
And it's a weird experience. And I didn't even go to the actual show because it was canceled. But versus a lot of people will actually point towards, man, I'd love to look like insert athlete, right? And it's like, but that athlete, of course, we just talked about, everyone wants to look better naked. Like, they pride themselves on their body, but the body was built through, it's a byproduct of doing everything they needed to do to perform at their best.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that body, like, helps them to do everything that they love to do versus the bodybuilder that's looks their best, throwing up air quotes, like when they're completely depleted for that, weekend of a show. Just a very interesting insight, as I've experienced the process of getting super like lean in a bodybuilding prep, and just as lean but with a habit and skill-based approach. One is rapid bodybuilding, and the other is a slow process that happened ever so slowly that you don't notice it until, like, you look at a picture contrasted against a picture from months or a year prior. You're like, oh my God.
Right.
And if it's like, Todd wrote a thing for his other business recently. It was like, if it's fast, it won't last. I forget what the slow part is, but there's a slow ring to it as well.
And it makes so much sense. I mean, now we're maybe going out of order of my experiences, which not like we haven't been this whole time. But I remember there was at one point after the nutrition program ended and after I had lost a bunch of weight, where I had my calories down like very, very low.
Yep.
And I came to you one day, was like, dude, I think I have like a food problem. Like, because I would just go ape shit on all the sweets, and like just constantly be eating like I look like one of those mukbang people, like who you see those mukbangs of the people on like YouTube. They literally just sit there and like eat food and like just film themselves doing it. It's crazy. But I was eating all of this food, and I remember we talked about it, and I had like towards the end of the large weight loss, I started my mindset had shifted because I was like, okay, I'm going to get down to this number. And in order to do so, I was like, we're going to just sprint for it and just go really hard. And I did it. I got there. And then again, we talked about it. What's next?
Yeah.
Well, what's next for me was you are so hungry that you were eating all of the things. And your biggest thing to me was like, let's not do that. Yeah. Let's not do that. Let's do something that makes sense sustainably.
Bingo.
And so we because I was unable to let go of counting calories completely, you were like, let's at least try and jump this up a little bit. And that was a big thing for me.
But I also asked you what interested you.
Yes.
Because we needed to get the narrative away from body composition. And I don't mean in that meeting. We can talk about body composition all you want.
Yeah.
But I remember being like, dude, what excites you right now? Like, physically, is there anything that you're like, I'd like to do that? And it was kind of an exploratory conversation.
Yeah. Which we're still literally still in that exploratory moment. So that's funny. Keep going. Sorry.
But what's cool is I think in some level you'll always be in that exploratory. I think it's I guess there is the limited I don't know if I'd say limited individual, but I'll say it, limited individual who finds that one thing that they go all in on. And that's just their sole focus. But I think it's fun to kind of go from this interests me right now. I'm going to do this for a while. I've done that with going from the Georgia Death Race to I'm going to get ready for another ultra. I got sick. Okay. That's a wrench I didn't see coming. Wasn't planning on it. Here's jiu-jitsu, right? And then it's but I think at some level, obviously running will be a part of the rest of my life. Jiu-jitsu will be a part of the rest of my life. But right now, for a while, running was I'm getting ready for this Georgia Death Race. Okay, now I'm on this path. I have a goal of getting my blue belt in a certain time period. But after that, I hope that there is something else that's super interesting to me. I don't want to just have this sole focus. Maybe I'll change my mind on that. But all that to say, bringing it to you, I think it's normal to be continually searching for that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's where the path to black came from, but I think you were already kind of on it at that point.
Well, yeah, I think a couple of things. So number one, tying that last piece into nutrition, the really interesting thing about being able to explore and try and do different things physically is that you have to have the energy to do so.
Yeah.
You can't do any of those things if you're not eating food.
Yeah.
Or if you're not eating in a way that fuels your energy levels and your ability. Because, one thing about not fueling yourself properly is that it's going to have an effect, obviously, on like your energy levels, your ability to perform like in the gym, but it's also just going to have an effect on like, I don't know, the way I think a lot of the time. If I'm tired all of the time, I'm not going to want to go try new things. I'm going to go to my 9 to 5. I'm going to drag myself into a gym session, and then I'm going to try to go to bed.
Yeah.
But if you're fueling yourself well, you see something, you're like, you know what? I have the capacity, especially if you've been here, right? And you've been training and you have that general physical preparedness, you will be able to like get out there and do other things and try other things. So like there is so much that you get out of fueling yourself properly and fueling yourself well. And yeah, I think from just like an exploratory standpoint, for me, sometimes I think we hear that we need to constantly be like growing, and the way that people take that sometimes can make them change things up that they are doing really well and make them like kind of want to throw the baby out with the bathwater sort of thing. And so for me, it was like, okay, actually remember, I was like, you were doing your Georgia death race and stuff. And I was like, I got to do something cool too. Like I got to do something cool. And, trying to figure out different things. And I think for me, just trying to hit the black strength standards was like, you know what? I like being here, and I like doing this, and I like being around these people, and I like improving at these things. I love Beyond Strength. Like I always say it, it's my favorite place in Northern Virginia because I like the way we train. I like the people. I like hanging out. And so if I like something and I think it's really cool, well, then why don't I go in more on that? And I think that's where like the black strength standard is, because it gives me excuse to do this more and like not rationalizes, but continues to push myself to be in here more often with the people that I like.
But
so
we teased at the fact that you haven't accomplished black yet.
Yes.
Okay. And I want to say this. You're saying strength standards or strength and conditioning and everything.
Yeah.
What'd you deadlift? I heard. What did you deadlift last week? I don't remember maybe what you did this week, but this week is higher volume, a little lower intensity. But last week I heard you deadlifted what?
Oh, yeah. So you were doing so I deadlifted 415 for 3 sets of 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's stupid. Like, and I mean that in a congratulatory way.
Thank you.
Especially when you reflect on like where were you at when you came in the door? I don't remember for the strength standards where you were.
It was much lower than that.
Yeah.
It was much lower than that. I can't even I have to go look at my old papers, but I obviously like there's certain movements that work really well for you, and like deadlift has been I love to deadlift. I just love to pick that thing up off the ground. I love to stand up. When you get to the top, you just sort of breathe and you're like, I did do that.
Yep.
And then you put it back down, and then you get to do it again.
Yep.
There's no better feeling, right?
But so there's a deadlift test, there's a squat test,
Mm-hmm.
there's a chin up test, there's a rear foot elevated split squat test, there's a broad jump, there's a 500 meter row, there's if I didn't already say it, there's a push up test, like there's a 60-minute row, there's a 2,000 meter row, there's all these different things, and the flexed arm hang, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, and so like I don't want people thinking like, man, like okay, he did all that, he lost the weight, but like his performance hasn't improved. What are you missing to get black right now?
That's such a great question.
I don't mean what's missing from your training.
Oh, no.
I mean what test is holding you up?
So it's the conditioning tests, and the flexed arm. Oh, sorry, the conditioning test, the flexed arm hang, and the broad jump by like 2 inches.
Okay.
Yeah.
All of the conditioning tests?
Yeah, dude.
Really?
Dude. So, and okay, I'm gonna give myself an excuse. So I think a lot of people with condition. I forgot where I heard this is like. A lot of your heart conditioning gets built when you were like younger, playing sports and stuff like that, because, you got used to running and doing all of those things. Now, I avoided every sport like the plague when I was a child. I avoided gym class like the plague. I just didn't like physical activity. And so my excuse is that I did not have the heart conditioning needed to. Now that is a dumb excuse, but I'm sticking to it.
I'll say this. I don't know about that. Maybe not. I know that there are speed windows and things like that. I don't know about endurance windows, but I know that there are. It's the whole thing of like I said about people want to look like athletes, but it doesn't mean that you can look like any athlete you want. Like a lot of athletes look the way they do, because that's the way that they look, and their build made them, because their build was. There are outliers. There's, you know, Muggsy Bogues was how tall, right? Everyone can point towards an NBA player, for anyone that doesn't know, super short. I don't even know if he was 5 foot. He was barely 5 foot.
Yeah, I didn't know who that was.
Really?
I was just
okay.
smiling.
Now you need to go look that up. But for the most part, certain body types excel in sports, and therefore they gravitate towards those sports.
That makes so much sense. Yeah.
But then you can hone like a result of putting all the time into that sport. You look. It's not your sole focus, but you get what I'm saying? You have the propensity to look better and better, whatever that may mean, from putting in the work.
Yeah.
But still, certain body types are kind of geared towards certain activities.
Yeah.
That being said, I think what makes the conditioning test so hard is that with strength, you can create strength pretty fast because there's a neurological component to it. There is a structural component too, but structurally, going back to the certain body types, you were built for strength, and you just needed to put in some time, get some technique down, and that came pretty fast to you. The thing that's going to be frustrating about the conditioning tests is that there's nothing that you can do, maybe something illegal, I don't know, but really there's nothing you can do but put in the time, and it's the time doing, unfortunately, some boring work that does, because the intensity of tests is the intensity of tests, but it doesn't mean that just going and doing that intensity will get you the result of the test. Unfortunately, it's building up the hardware, which is lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of low intensity, boring work that will lay a foundation that then you can go and use. You have all this strength, you are freaking strong. So you build this massive aerobic foundation, then we layer the aerobic power on top of that, and you're going to be able to do it. And you are doing those things.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is it's time. You joined in 2021. We talked about your struggles with different things. Late 2022, we had the whole body transformation into, halfway through 2023.
Yeah.
And so now we're sitting at, we talked about, maybe, we're almost a year from that. It's coming for you. But I didn't know what you were going to say, which test it would be, but that makes sense. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. I remember you guys said that in one of the other podcasts, because I am an avid listener. I remember talking about, especially around Todd and his running, and needing that lots of monotonous, low intensity effort. And I remember I was in the car, as I am when I listen to podcasts, and I just went, dang it, man. Because it's right. And I think I find myself, one, slightly annoyed by that, but that's fine because that's the work. But then two, that's also exciting because that's something that I don't do very often. I can very big, get in and get it out. That's why I love big lifts. I do it 3, 5, 6 times. I put it down and I can go walk it off, right? Yeah. But being able to sit down and just, or not sit down, or get on the road, or do whatever you got to do cardio wise, and bang out that long conditioning session, that's a different part of the brain that I have to work. And I think it feeds back into all of the other things that we do, right? Being able to do something for a long period of time is a skill. It's a skill in terms of nutrition, right? Being able to. I was
going to say, this is all related.
I know, it comes right back. It's in terms of nutrition, being able to stick to your foundational rules and your habits over just a long period of time. When you've been doing it for a year and it feels kind of boring and feels not super fun anymore. Because when you start something, it's always new and fun and amazing. But turning it around, and I think it's the same thing with this, where it's okay. Can we build up our capacity to just buckle in, zone in, and just keep doing and finding I don't know, a certain level of like joy in just
Yeah.
being able to do something forever.
And I say this to Todd all the time. He hates running, which cracks me up because he runs a lot. But it's because running is the only thing that gets you ready to run.
Mm-hmm.
You can do general physical preparedness and build an aerobic foundation, but then you go to run and the plyometric component just gets you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can find things that you enjoy. Like if you don't have a specific running goal, it doesn't have to be running, and you can find things that you enjoy. Or maybe it's like mixing things in with the thing that you don't enjoy. Like I know some people are like, no headphones, no listening to anything. Well, maybe it is the time where you listen to podcasts or you take in audiobooks or you set up your phone and you're able to watch. I don't like watch YouTube videos. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll be honest with you, there are some days where I'm like, I don't want to go outside and run today. Like I've been binge watching Reacher.
Ooh.
And so I'll be like, I'm gonna sit on a bike or I'm gonna get on my treadmill at home sometimes and be like, I'm just gonna go ahead, and it makes that hour fly by.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something that you said earlier that brought me back to that, because I was gonna say about sometimes distracting you from the work if you hyper focus. It was something you said about like really focusing on like the weight goal, right? And then but at the end of the day, the process is just the process. So if you focus on the process, the rest takes care of itself. And I was going to say, this week I was doing just low intensity, easy conditioning on the Echo bike. And it wasn't here. It was at the other gym that we work out of. And I was uncomfortable on the seat and I was watching the seconds tick by and I was like, oh my, you know what? I'm just going to stop at 30 minutes today. I was going to go, well, I didn't really have a defined time, but it was like, I'm going to go over 30.
Yeah.
And I was playing some mental games from there. And it felt like 30 was never going to come. And someone came into the gym and started talking to me, and it was an interesting conversation. And next thing you knew, like I'm just going and going and going. And I didn't think for 1 second of that conversation about the bike or what the time was. I never glanced down at the time. And then his phone rang. He's like, oh, got to take this, got to go. And I looked down and it was like 45 minutes. And we started that conversation at 20 something.
Yup.
And I didn't. So point being is like, it might be a weird example, but it's true for hyper focusing on like the weight or the inches lost or whatever. The process is the process. You're going to sit here and you're going to ride this damn bike, and you can sit here and hyper focus on the seconds ticking by, or you can enjoy that conversation, or you could listen to something, or you could like and ignore everybody that says like, no, you got to make it, whatever. And it's nutrition, it's cardio, it's showing up in strength and doing your rest intervals and not rushing those. And so, but
well, and even with that, I mean, that plays into something else. Environment, right?
Yeah.
The way that you set yourself up in your environment up to make it convenient to do the things that you need to be able to do. We talk about that in the nutrition program with the super fridge and like making sure that your fridge is stocked with all of the foods that are going to make it the de facto choice for you to go in and pull the foods out that you should be eating, right? The adult foods.
Should.
Should. Fair enough. That is...
maybe the better choice.
Thank you. The better choice. And I think it's the same thing with like, with your cardio, with your, for me, getting into the gym and working out in the first place, this was an environment that made it conducive because there are people here that I like. That is a completely different experience for me going to train by myself. And now I can train by myself if I want to, but it took me this convenience experience to make me like working out, to make me go do something else or to be able to do it alone. And so there's so much of, perfect, quote unquote, being the enemy of good. And some people will be like you said, no, you like can't run with music. And to them, that's perfection. But to the person who doesn't want to run at all, perfect or good is just getting outside and hitting the pavement. And if they have to do that with a podcast or if they have to do that with an album they like, then like, why leave that people alone?
Yeah. If thens, like if I'm gonna, throwing up air quotes here, waste time sitting around watching whatever show, then I will hop on the treadmill and walk or insert audiobook, whatever. I'll go on a walk. I'll ride my bike, whatever. Maybe not ride your bike with headphones. I don't know. But you get what I'm saying. Like take something that you want to do and attach it to something that, and I'm not saying go do things you don't want to do. Maybe you should, but I'm saying things, and that's like, I didn't articulate well whenever I was like, should, like, and I said better. Well, no, just the choice that moves you towards who you really want to be or the outcome that you really want to have.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day is the choice that you actually want to make. But in the moment, there's something else that just sounds really good. And,
Yeah.
and you just like, I'll be honest, like, I'm like, am I even saying this? But yeah, whatever. Last night I opened the cabinet and I don't count macros, I don't count calories, but you pay attention to certain things, right? And I had already eaten like what I had been like, all right, here's what I'm gonna have for the day. I wasn't hungry.
No.
But Jess came home from the weekend from a friend's house who gave her something that was like, I don't really like these. You can have them. And they are these s'mores. I don't know, something from Costco. They're like these s'mores, like just all in one, like you bite into it and like, I'm gonna go get one. And as I'm walking over to the cabinet, I'm like, dude, like you're not even hungry. Like, and like someone might listen to this and be like, this is a horrible inner dialogue, but I'll explain how it all makes sense for me. And I opened the cabinet, and what I did for me is like, it's so convenient. It's right there. And I just made myself read the nutrition label. And Jess is watching this from the couch and she's like, what are you doing? Because she knows I don't count macros. She knows I don't. And I just went, nah, I'm good. Like, and it doesn't mean I'm not going to have it, right? Because for me, like, it doesn't fit my goal. Like,
Right.
I have like for the most part, I stay around the same weight all the time.
Yeah.
But we went to Florida and I enjoyed the M&M's store at Disney Springs, and we came home with a whole lot of M&M's. And I have eaten so many M&M's, right? And I'm just like a little away from where I'm like, nah, dude, like let's tighten some things up.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all that this was. Is like, no, I'm tightening things up. But also timing is a thing. And I know we don't need to get into all this now, but like for someone to just be like, you won't enjoy a damn s'more? No, I will at a different time.
Yes.
But I know that by having it at that time later at night, not to nerd out, but I know there'll be a different blood sugar response. I know that it will have an impact on my sleep, which will create a cascade of how that's going to affect my readiness and how I feel and everything the next day. And so I'm just not going to have it right now. I'm going to have it. I'm gonna try it. It's not like some evil thing, but
Right.
it just when you have these different things that you check in with, I don't know, it just creates a different level of self-awareness. But for time's sake, because we have someone coming in here, I want to ask you, because we went over a whole bunch of stuff, right? We start with like where you were and what happened, but if you could go back, I said I was going to ask you a different question than this, and a little bit that we previewed about this, but I'm actually going to ask you a similar but different question. If you could go back and talk to yourself I think you joined in like October or November of 2021. What would you say to yourself? And you could come at this from like, maybe you don't want to have some of the struggles that you had, but I don't know, however you want to come at it. What would you say to yourself? We're going to do that one first.
I would say, honestly, I think I would just say it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Because with the personality that I have, I catastrophize things so often, and I've gotten better at it over time. But I think if somebody could just say, "Hey, it's gonna be fine," then I think I would probably be much less anxious on a much less more regular basis. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then similar but different. Someone, and I'm going to make this one a little more specific, someone that is in similar shoes as you, but I actually think I want you to speak to an avatar. So an avatar meaning like, you understand what avatars are? Okay. So of the person who doesn't have to be here, but they did the thing that you did. They started, probably overcommitted. They stopped. They created this, the catastrophizing, this story in their head of why they can't go back and what everyone thinks of me and everything else. Doesn't have to be here. I'm not using this as like a sales pitch to like someone that left this gym. If it is, cool. Like, but genuinely, you know the upside of like getting past all that. What would you say to yourself or someone else specifically in that period when you weren't thinking you were necessarily going to come back in? Or someone that made that decision to stop and doesn't have plans to resume something?
I think I would tell that person that everyone here wants you at your best, and key emphasis on yours. And whatever your best that you can give is where we want to see you. So if that means come in once a week and pick all of the easiest exercises, we want that. That's awesome. If that means come in 3 days a week or 5, we want that, but we just want you. And I think when people know that they're wanted and and that people want to see them around versus not, I think that encourages people to want to be part of this whole thing. Because this whole thing for me, what has kept me going for so long has been community, has been the people. And then, I was able to find my own pieces of motivation off of that. But like when I am not wanting to go or not wanting to show up for any day, I think, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to see, the people that I get to work out with. Oh, the day that I was deadlifting with the 415, I was trading sets with Dan. And like, that was awesome. Yeah. And I like Dan. Dan's cool. And knowing that those people want to see you and acknowledging that people want you around, I think is what I would be trying to do with somebody in that same situation.
I love it. Okay, one more for you.
Yeah.
Your results are incredible.
Thank you.
The person that wants their own incredible results and just they can't, or they have a hard time imagining that they can. Okay. They're creating a mountain. What is the saying? A mountain out of a molehill, right? I'm not saying that it was easy, but I think it would be safe to say that, like, in hindsight, it's relatively simple. I don't want to oversimplify it, but to that person who's just like has a story in their head that, well, everyone else has it easier, and it's like I can't, and like, but they're in that point of like just feeling like, and I don't know, maybe you weren't ever really there. I don't know if you hit that point, but what would you say to that person? And then I promise you I'm done with them. What would you say to this person?
Don't even worry about it. I think I would say to that person that regardless of how easy or hard anybody else that's not you has it, right? You will only get to that place if you do something. You have to do something. And that something can be anything. That something can be talk to somebody. That something could be take on one different habit, look at one meal and change it. But you have to do something. And if you do, then that's going to lead to something else. It always does. But you have to start. Like, I think analysis by paralysis is such a big thing. Or paralysis by analysis is such a big thing. You look at all of the factors working against you. You try to find the perfect program. You try to figure everything out before you actually do anything. And then you don't do anything. Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, the answer is just start. And you'll figure everything else out. And it'll be at the speed that makes sense for you and the speed that you're going to move. But you can't get there if you don't start.
Boom. Cory? We're doing another one of these.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you. I'm telling you.
Okay.
No, of course I'm asking you. I want to do another one of these because I feel like, one, we were on a little bit of a time crunch today.
Yeah.
And we are at that time. And there's so much that you and I and whoever you're sitting across, anyone, man, like that would have the privilege of being able to sit down and pick your brain on stuff. But I really do want to do another one of these. And we'll think about it. But and I'm just going to tease it again, what you talked about in the short conversation we had out there that day on challenge, because me and Todd were saying our perspective on things, and then you just leaned forward and dropped the most like philosophical response, but it was based on like your personal experience, and I'm excited to follow up and do that one. But for today, thank you. Normally Todd and I end these by talking shit on each other. I'm not going to do that, man. Hey. I'm sitting here smiling ear to ear. I'm glad we got to do this. So
thank you, man. No, I really this was awesome. I'm very, very appreciative and like of everything you, the space, and all of the people around have done for me. I'm glad to kind of give back wherever I can, and I can't wait to do more.
Boom. And here we go.